Welcome to the Honourable and the Hack.
Polling says one thing, politics does another, and somewhere in between, chaos.
Today's guest lives in the middle of that space between public opinion, political strategy, and media narratives, and where those three collide.
He advises governments, corporations, institutions on what Canadians are actually thinking, and not just what politicians hope they're thinking.
He's the chair of Summa Strategies and a regular face on Power and Politics.
And critically for this show, a Newfoundlander, a longtime political commentator, a CBC regular, has done I don't know how many columns with the Hill Times. Not everybody would know, though, has had a massive involvement with Rugby Canada, a huge involvement in mental health governance here in Canada. And somehow, when he's not coaching his young fellas hockey team, also finds time to explain Canadian politics to the rest of us.
So in the midst of all that, he agreed to come on the show. Thanks for coming.
Well, you guys must be hard up. Listen, if I'm David Cochran's follow-up act, I don't know. I need a new contract, that's for sure.
It's great to have you on, Tim. I guess we're reaching you in Ottawa this evening.
You got me in Ottawa, and behind me, it's all Newfoundland all the way to the stairs, just like Alex's employer, although I'm sure he gets more manna from heaven than I do going up those stairs.
Actually, so we're going to jump right in, Tim. I mean, obviously, I've been had the fortune of dealing with you for the last number of years, sometimes when it's calling an open line, sometimes it's just conversation to decide about politics. I think, actually, we did a thing down at Bannerman, might have been last year around the time of the American election. But I mean, like any superhero, there's an origin story, and I mean, so this is a chance now. Give us the origins. I mean, look, a lot of people know you're from Newfoundland and that you went to school here, but bring us through what got you where you are right now.
Well, I couldn't get a job anywhere else, I guess, is the quick answer to it. It's kind of like why you go into politics, Andrew. You know that. Like, I can't do anything else. Shit, I'll make my gums flap, and Lord knows what happens. Origin story. Well, I guess a bit like your origin story, though you have more courage than I did. You put your hand up for elected office. Go back in the history of Newfoundland and Labrador, I had one great-grandfather that was the Prime Minister of Newfoundland for a very brief period of time. Another that was the Finance Minister of the Dominion of Newfoundland and Labrador. And then the curse begins there. Although there was a book written about my mother's family by Michael Harris about the Crosbys, Rare Ambition. I don't think I got the ambition or the rare part, but there was a great part in there about how there was a curse in the family that went back all the way to Robert the Bruce. So if you guys ever watched Braveheart, Robert the Bruce's character is in there with Mel Gibson. So you'll have to figure out if I just told you a load of bullshit or if all of that is true, but most of it is. And I'm no Mel Gibson, and I'm not going to make any racist comments either like Mel, because that would get me in trouble. So a long way of saying the politics of Newfoundlandia goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, mostly on my mother's side of the family. And my dad and mother were big influences over me. My dad actually came to Newfoundland to build the Trans-Canada Highway. He was originally from British Columbia, via Ottawa after that, and he met my mother on a blind date, connecting again to Andrew's world. Not that we're lost brothers or anything like that, but my mother used to work on Confederation Building in the old LaGrose travel there that predates all of us. She met him on a blind date. He drove by there just about every other day. So interwoven all there, grew up in Newfoundland, admired both of them. They were, he was tied to business. Her family was connected to politics. The master of ceremonies at their wedding was John Crosby. Their flower girl was Beth Crosby. So I was cursed from day one. There was some kind of political business thing going to happen, and thus where I am now.
Well, Robert the Bruce's character had a real redemption arc in that film, so maybe there's hope for you yet.
Oh, Alex, that's very kind of you to be mindful of that. No, that's probably too late, man. Too late.
Tim, one thing I was thinking about, the three of us are just kind of news and politics junkies from different
Mhm.
sides. But, I think we kind of relish the chaos a little bit, the action. In Newfoundland and Labrador this year, we had three levels of elections: municipal, provincial, federal, all in the same year. With the frequency of returning minority governments in Ottawa, the rate of elections has increased. But if we have one more floor crosser, that we might get a break. Because my question is, are you looking forward to that break, or is that kind of take the fun out of the game a little bit?
Oh no, it'll only change the game. It'll make the game even more fun because if there is another floor crosser and that floor crosser comes from the Conservatives, though there is some thought there might be an NDP person in the mix as well. That again puts the Conservatives back into a place of do they cannibalize each other? Do they not? Do the Conservatives unwind? But the great theory that's been mounting around here for the last few days as well. Carney doesn't really necessarily want a floor crosser. They'll leave things as they are because they'd rather run against Pierre Poilievre because he's so unpopular. If there was a floor crosser, that means that Poilievre might go. I mean, Andrew probably heard wackier theories than that every day in provincial politics, but yeah, it's a wild environment here because you go back a year, right? And Justin Trudeau was still prime minister on his last legs. Um, Polyev had a 25-point lead and was almost certain, at least in his mind and many others, to become the next prime minister. And out of nowhere comes this Mark Carney, who, yes, some Canadians knew, certainly people in the Liberal Party had known him, but now he's prime minister, short of a majority. I mean, the wild thing for me, too, out of that, and I love Andrew's take on it, is so often in politics, there is the can't miss golden knight coming off the sidelines who's going to ride the party to victory. And usually 99.9% of the time, that never happens. But it actually did for the Liberals, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, I mean, if you had asked me this time last year, I mean, you saw it. I mean, you saw it in how many
Mhm.
people were stepping back, were walking away from federal politics, or announcing retirements, or that they weren't going to seek federal nominations, and then pretty rapid change. And again, I mean, Carney was known, but I didn't feel like he's someone that I knew. I mean, uh, watch, I think the advertising did a good job in the sense that it gave me an idea that he sort of had a bit of a sense of humor doing the Mike Myers commercials, things like that. But it could have gone the other way. I mean, it's before my time, but having done a fair bit of reading, Don Jameson coming home
Mhm.
back in the late 70s, early 80s, he was seen as being the savior, and it just did not pan out.
Or more recently than that, Michael Ignatieff, which the parallels I think are really striking there. And to your point about Golden Knights, Tim, there's for every Mark Carney, it seems like there's a dozen Ignatieffs.
Yeah, it was just wild and just a funny anecdote. So I ran into Andrew the other night at the hockey game when he was here in Ottawa, and it was just over a year ago. Of course, the World Junior Hockey Championships was happening here in Ottawa. Carney's a big sports fan. I, through a bunch of friends, have known him a little bit, and I ran into him at the World Juniors actually the night Canada lost to Latvia. So maybe that was an omen for him or for me. I don't know, but we were at that game, and Andrew will have done this to people before. When somebody's made their mind up, but they're politely asking you what you think. So Mark says to me, he says, if the opportunity presents itself, should I run? I said, you'd be cracked. I said, you'd be mad to do it. It's a good thing he didn't take my advice. He did. He decided to run, and look at where he is now.
I can't say that I would have given different advice, though. I mean, it just looked like the end was coming. But again, goes to show you what maybe I know for sure. But in your case, well, I don't know what to tell you, brother.
Well, it's funny, right? Because he went on to say, and again, you've probably asked the same question to people, Andrew, and when you're being asked it. But he went on to say, well, I don't know if I can help. He didn't say help himself, but this public service calling I got. I mean, it's pulling at me, and I think that knowing him a little bit was instructive, because I think in Carney, you have a little bit of a different politician in that I don't think he feels as beholden to the norms of politics as others do. Maybe that changes as it goes on and the like, but I think he's not worried if he only has one term. I think he's content if he does, if he can move the needle a little bit. Anyway, we shall see. A moral of the story: if I ever give you political advice, do like Mark Carney, don't take it.
That's a really interesting insight about not being beholden to those typical political conventions. And Tim, you're far more familiar with Ottawa politics than me in federal politics. I work more in the provincial space, but in either of those spaces, something I think about sometimes is when the guy comes in and takes the top job after never having any of the other jobs. And when I think of Andrew Fury in that role, or Denny Williams, and now Mark Carney, the reins are often a little bit tighter. They're that idea of latitude. It's almost like the CEO role, right? Instead of the cabinet ministers kind of getting to do what they want. You can't be a minute late for a Mark Carney cabinet meeting. And I wondered, being closer to the action there, if those sort of things that we hear in the media nationwide are kind of what you hear on the ground about how tightly the ship runs for the Carney Liberals.
Well, you forgot the CEO of Newfoundland politics, Frank Coleman. Oh, wait, sorry, that never happened, did it? It lasted about 12 and a half seconds. And you're a nice fellow, Mr. Coleman. You're a nice fellow. You probably made the right decision in the end. Oh, Alex, for sure. Like, Mark Carney is no mess, no nonsense. And I think that's what was necessary. Justin Trudeau was a successful politician. I know everybody is very critical of him right now, but again, the honorable side of the house here can tell you, if you win 3 elections, one of them is a majority, and your party wins 3 elections, particularly in the era in which we live, that's an impressive outcome, and history will be more favorable to Justin Trudeau than life is right now. But the Liberal Party owes everything to Mark Carney. Like, a lot of these people were going to be out of jobs with very bleak prospects. So Mark Carney and his management style, which very much is of a corporate CEO, you perform, you do it now, we get it done, has generally been fully accepted, because there isn't much latitude for anything else right here. His challenge with that is that if you're going to be sustaining over time, you need to build bonds with your caucus. You need people to support you when it gets tough, and you got to do the human relations side of the business. And you also have to broaden your tent a little bit. And there's some vulnerabilities there, but Trump keeps giving Carney opportunity as he takes away opportunity for Pierre Poilievre. It's fascinating to me that we're heading into 2026, or when this airs, it may be 2026. Mark Carney has really not had a significant measurable policy outcome, the Alberta-Canada MOU aside, because there's still no pipeline proponent there. As a model, it's fascinating and could be truly historical, but his popularity, Mark Carney's, and the benefit of the doubt Canadians are still giving him as an individual against Donald Trump is incredible. Very few politicians would be given that latitude.
Absolutely. So just sort of, we had, myself and Alex had a conversation with a guest about this. And I guess conversely to what we're talking about with Prime Minister Carney, we had to talk about opposition leader Poilievre.
Mm-hmm.
To have that lead, right? To have that popularity of polling and to not sort of seize upon it. One of the things I said, I guess sort of my small town Newfoundland and Labrador take was that there was a pretty big swath in the middle who weren't decided, but maybe didn't like that aggressiveness, which didn't pivot when he changed adversaries. You know what I mean? Sometimes people like that. I'm not saying they don't like aggressive people, but at the same time, it's like, okay, that guy's gone. You beat the shit out of him. Now you got a new guy. What are you going to do with this guy? And kept saying the same shit. Like, what's your thoughts sort of on that? Because again, you look at this time last year, we all thought there'd be new business cards with, Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, all the Polyev thing, because look, the Conservatives, in defending their performance, not winning, but they will tell you, and they're right, they got a historic popular vote number. That's great. They won the most seats the Conservatives won since Stephen Harper became Prime Minister. Also true, but they didn't win the election. And when you're in politics, usually your main goal, at least when you're competing in elections, is to win them. Um, Poilievre's just a fascinating character. He has rebuilt, or not rebuilt, but he of the leaders that have succeeded Harper, he is the one who is most firmly in control of his party. He brought in a lot of people who live by grievance politics, who see nothing good in their political opponents, particularly the ones that wear a red jersey. And he has played and performed so much to their liking that his ability to transition into another space is questionable, and I think he views it as risky, because the people that he's brought in don't ever want to hear that Mark Carney's doing something good. They don't ever want to know that, a liberal politician can make a positive impact. But there are other Canadians who want to see, a prime minister that can be reasonable. Yeah, they can be tough, but it also can present a human side from time to time. We've seen lots of that in Newfoundland and Labrador. Andrew, you used to be a pretty tough guy in the House, but you also showed a human side that people liked. And so they accepted the toughness and the occasional nastiness. Poilievre has real trouble with that. Like, I've known the guy for 20 odd years, and I think his biggest challenge is he's never lived outside that world. He was one of the guys, like Andrew Scheer, who's the senior leader of his, as you know, also a former leader of the party, who basically grew up as young 20-year-olds with the beginning of a real professionalization of politics, and a real professionalization of campaigning, particularly on the right, heavily influenced by the US, Australia, and other things. So they don't know other dimensions, and that may be his greatest strength, but also his greatest weakness. We could go into the end of 2026, and he may be on the ascension, or he may be like Justin Trudeau, not dating Katy Perry, but no longer in a leadership role.
Yeah, you mentioned how you grew the base and still lost, and I think it's telling. If you grow your base and your party by one vote, but for every vote you get, you push an NDP voter to the Liberal camp, you've gained nothing. But I wonder how much of that was him and how much of it was Trump. And I'd be curious, where
Well,
you thought that
except
came
Alex,
across.
that is true, but don't forget that. Look, Polyev. I've used this line before, but I like it, so, and I'm not very clever, so I'll use it again. And that is, the Canadian historian Donald Crichton Eustace has said that history is the thing of character and circumstance. So Polyev is a victim of his own circumstance and character. Donald Trump may have moved a few NDP voters to the left, but he pulverized Jagmeet Singh. He beat the living hell out of Jagmeet Singh. The Conservatives spent well over a year and a half and millions of dollars saying Jagmeet Singh is a sellout, he's a liberal, and that worked for them. But it worked so well that when Justin Trudeau, who they also pulverized, who they also, chided, abused, you pick your term, was taken out again by the work of the conservative attack machine, they had nothing left. So his whole game, Andrew mentioned this earlier, was going to be just walking over and taking the liberal voters away. But he didn't leave the NDP in a strong enough place to help them win. When conservatives have won elections in the last 20 years and majority governments, the NDP's been higher. But Pierre Poilievre, through his, pugilistic, never ceasing instincts, beat up and beat down the normal opportunity conservatives have of a slightly stronger NDP. When Harper won his majority government in 2011, who was the opposition? Jack Layton. at 100 seats because the Liberals, because the NDP left the Liberals. Sorry, the Liberals left either a large enough measure that some went to the NDP and others went to the Conservatives, and the Conservatives won. So yeah, Trump definitely played a role, but I think the problem for Poilievre with Trump was he didn't know how to present a counter argument to what Carney was offering because they were such contrast. Carney, again, was the boring but experienced banker who was reasonable in a world of carnival barkers, where many might have seen Pierre as a bit of a carnival barker. Not like Trump, but enough like Trump in style that they didn't necessarily want that.
Yeah, certainly the grievance factor that you mentioned before seems like it was shared across the border.
Yeah, but this is why it's still hard to figure out where Poilievre's going to go, because there are a lot of people, particularly younger than Andrew and I, but your age, Alex, and even a little younger, who really feel like they have no opportunity, that they can't buy a house, they are shagged when it comes to growth potential, and for whatever reason, Polyev still connects with them, young males, Gen Z males, younger millennials. They haven't really moved off of him. You look at a lot of data right now, he still holds that. So again, the challenge for him is he's harvested their grievance. He connects with their grievance. Where does he go with that grievance, and how can he move away from that grievance and bring others in? Because Carney's being held together by my crowd, the over 50s, who feel like he is thoughtful and he gets the world and maybe he's protecting their interests. So, that whole kind of generational divides that are there are fascinating for leaders to navigate right now, too.
So, I mean, that might be a good way to jump into, because I totally agree with what you're saying there. But you mentioned data and you mentioned
Yeah.
polling. I mean, this is the world in which you live. Like, just a couple things as someone who's been doing this a long time. I mean, do you think leaders, and I'm not just talking federal, I'm talking provincial, you name it, but like, are they too focused on the daily swings that come with polling? Is there like when are there mistakes that people are making when they're reacting to these numbers? Like, is there misunderstandings that you think that people need to learn from when it comes to the information that people like you are able to gather?
Yeah, I would say, look, you have a lot of politicians now who've grown up with the ability to analyze thousands of data points, and they're thrown at them, right? Like, here, if you run on policy X, you'll get this swath of voters in Port Basque, and that'll connect with people in Mount Pearl, or that'll work in Sydney, or work in St. John. So, anybody who's in any business wants to learn and mobilize as much knowledge as they can to their benefit, I assume. But I do think, to your point, people get distracted by it because I think, and Alex, you cover this in the media work that you do. I think authenticity and authentic leadership and humanity, and humility too, are valuable leadership skills in politics. So you look at, nationally, like him or loathe him, Doug Ford is, makes mistakes all the time, owns them. He somehow brushes away scandal like it were but a snowflake because he presents himself as this authentic character. Gives out his phone number, drives around in a pickup truck, and people like that. And those guys, I know a lot of the Ford guys, they live and die by data, but they also are governed by the persona of their boss, who is now in the annals of Ontario history, one of the most winning and successful politicians. Think about that, right? And that isn't data as much as it is force of personality, the opportunity that is there. But certainly, I think the former Prime Minister Trudeau, perhaps at points, was governed too much by polling and the configuration of that. I think you can point to lots of examples. I think Polyev, to a certain degree, is, and the issues he focuses on and why. But I think I would still say, as somebody who's lived in the polling space, that authenticity is the most valuable currency you can have, because even when you screw up, and people do, we all do, that authenticity can dig you out of holes.
So two
Authenticity
things.
is
So sorry, Alex. I got to jump in on this one. Number one, if you had told me, I can't remember how many years ago, but remember going through the Rob Ford
Yeah,
saga
yeah, I
at
know,
City
right?
Hall, and his brother there, and then his brother's going to run. If you had told me that this guy would turn out being the leader that is, I would have lost all money. Proline would just wouldn't take it. I mean, so again, just goes to show you, I agree with the point, the authenticity part, and I think more and more people are able to. Again, there's enough viewing of people in every medium, whether it's TV, radio, shows like this, social media. I think a lot of people do want to go to feel that the person's not perfect, but that they resonate with them and that they can make the screw up, but at the end of the day, are generally going to try to make the right choices. And that's how I think someone like Doug comes off.
Well, I know Alex wants to come in. The question we used to use in the polling business, and for years, and Alex, you would have used it in reporting, is who's the one you want to have a beer with? Now, maybe it's who do you want to pop a gummy with in this day and age? I don't know, whatever your substance of choice is, or your Heineken Zero, but it's that kind of person you can see sitting down with and shooting the shit, right? Chrétien is such a classic example of that. When I was first here in Ottawa, Mr. Chrétien, and what you see with him is what you get. I remember, I have these weird encounters with these prime ministers. I was out running one day during COVID, and in an area where he lives, and you were allowed to run then, so I wasn't breaking the law. So I was out for this run, and I see this guy from a mile away, and I'm like, oh my God, because Mr. Chrétien looks like Mr. Chrétien. He looks like a
Yeah.
skinny version of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had his glasses on. I'm just jogging. I'm looking like him. Like, no, it can't be. It can't be. It can't be. Anyway, there's John Chrétien out by himself for a walk, but he's sitting down, just sitting on the park bench. Just wave at him. I've met him a couple. Hey, Mr. Chrétien, I'm fine. He's just this authentic character. And back to that very point, like you could see him out in your neighborhood. You could see him out among people, hanging about and being warm and welcoming and witty, and that again, I've beat the dead horse there, and Mr. Chrétien didn't strangle me like he did that guy on Flag Day when I said hello to him. So there you go, Alex. Sorry.
It's okay. I think this topic of authenticity is fascinating because it's hard to nail down. I think of the old U.S. Supreme Court line about pornography. You can't describe it, but you know it when you see it. What it makes somebody authentic or not authentic, because it can be different things with different people. Somebody could be frank and honest in interviews. And Seamus O'Regan is just so polished because he's a media presenter and he's a speech writer for Brian Tobin. And I always thought he was a very good speaker, but I talk to people and they're like, no, he's too good by. He's just too good. He's like, and our new premier Tony Wakeham is, I think he's got a lot of humanizing qualities. He's a sports coach, he's a father and a father, but he's not candid in interviews yet. So there's sort of comfort in front of the microphone, and then there's, I think, vulnerability is kind of the thing we're talking about with Ford and some of these other people. Don Davies at the press gallery, great example. The Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Dwight Ball, he in 2015 gets elected. A lot of a really strong mandate, but sort of stumbles out of the gate. Takes a while to get his footing, and a family crisis humanizes him in front of the province. And I think a lot of people looked at him differently after that. The vulnerability is a thing that kind of lets the guard down, lets you see somebody as human, and typically in ways they often don't want, but can end up serving them better in the long run.
Well, it's and Andrew will appreciate this because he and I are on the same journey with our kids. In sports now, you can buy every type of coaching you want. And you want to know how to skate backwards on one toe and do a slap shot at the same time, you can do that. there's so much specialization. Politics has been hit with that so vigorously, and Andrew will have undergone this, and it'd be different from when his dad's era in politics and the like. But it's like, you don't young politicians, you haul them in. Here, this is how you speak. Here's how you do your one or two key bullet points. Here are your defensive lines. Here are your holding lines. You beat the authenticity out of them. It takes certain degree of character, tenacity, and resilience to say, all right, I get what the training is for, but I'm going to let my own persona come to the front. I mean, this brings us back to Poilievre. He is such a sharp communicator, but if you can find an instance in the last 5 years where it isn't a string of talking points, God bless you. But it goes back to my point about the professionalization of politics, and part of what Andrew was talking about. We live in this world where, in politics, you almost want to neuter the personality and reconfigure it to the AI that you're implanting in them to be the most successful political supporter or acolyte or what have you of whomever the leader is or what the organization is. And particularly in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have so little tolerance of that. I mean, that's why I think, former colleagues of Andrews like Paul and Eddie get reelected, right? I mean, as unique as they are, that uniqueness sells, right? I mean, where in any other Canadian jurisdiction can, in the case of Paul, and I've had Paul on the radio many times, you go PC, liberal, independent speaker, and you're still going. Eddie, I mean, same thing, because they sell themselves and they are authentic, and they represent ridings like the Pearl and just outside where Eddie is, just outside Corner Brook, that crave that, love that, and it gives them a sustainability.
I have a good anecdote on that front regarding my co-host here, who I got to know, covering him first as Justice Minister, and then Industry Minister. And I don't know if he's looking forward to this one, but it was regarding the headquarters of Marine Atlantic and where it should be. And he was advocating it should go in Port aux Basques. And there were some staff members who wanted to keep living and working in St. John's. And he said, I don't care, very publicly. And the opposition seized on it, of course, but it was an honest moment. And it came to mind as you were saying this. And I'm not going to pump his tires that much on this show. So that's the one you get, Andrew.
It's funny because I distinctly remember that. And I, probably could have done it a bit better, but I wouldn't change a single thing. Two things that came out of it. Number one, there were a lot of, I'll say there were people in our caucus who I ended up being at like a barbecue or something with. They were not happy with me. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. But I'll never forget. I think I was home like the next day or the day later, picking up the kids, and we all had to wait in the lobby at the elementary school, waiting for the kids to get out. And very rarely did anybody say anything to me. That day, I don't know how many people I had say, "Way to go, Parsons! Way to go! Good job!" And because look, I just like you say, it was what I felt. There was no filter or varnish to it. I could have probably said it a lot better, but it was the true feeling I had about it. I still have that feeling; it hasn't changed. But anyways, I mean, look. The authenticity, it is harder because it's funny, we go back, you mentioned my father. I mean, Jesus, when he started, they weren't even televised.
That's right.
Right, I mean, and then you move into when I started, which feels like eons ago, but I mean, I got my first Twitter account in 2011, the year I ran,
Yeah.
to the point where as you get closer into it, like it was getting more and more sanitized, as you say, very, very careful. Watch out what you're doing. I'm just lucky that I had been there, so I was able to sort of say these things that I think, well, I know we're authentic because I would get notes and I'd say, this is not what a human would say. Like, what about the second
Yeah.
question when they say this first question's bullshit? And I, look, for me, it worked. And I think for a lot of other people, it worked. And I think is going to continue working. But there's a carefulness because, being authentic also has challenges. People also want you to be thoughtful. and
Yeah.
authentic's one thing, but like I'm sure there's a lot of these ridiculous politicians that are completely authentic, but it doesn't jive with maybe common sense or sensible values.
But that's just we're down a whole other track, but it's fun. So we all grew, or Andrew and I in particular, and your dad would have covered it, Alex, like in the high quality performative era of Newfoundland politics, where it would be the question period in the House of Assembly or the House of Commons. And when, as I said, nepotism got me my job with John Crosby. Very proud of that. That's fine. Who cares? So, hey, everybody else in Newfoundland and Labrador, we have that in common. We all got a job from somebody in our family. Anyway, I remember when I was a little fart catcher working for John, and he and Baker, George, who I love, all the time, back and forth. All right, how are we going to do question period today? And the Newfoundlanders watching this nationally knew what was going on because when John was whatever Minister of Fisheries Justice and George was going after him, it helped with the ultimate goal, right? And the more rowdy and the entertaining that it was, the better. But people understood that was performative. It wasn't nasty for the sake of nasty. It wasn't like it is today. Let's come up with the nastiest, most obscene social media clip out of question period that could work. And some of the best relationships that I've seen in life and politics were those people working across party lines. I know Andrew had some of that in the House of Assembly and the like. But they understood the performance art of politics. They understood also the human dimension of politics. And they also understood, hey, you know what? I can have a friendship out of all of this too, and some good will get done. And I think when it comes to Newfoundland and Labrador, there's still that expectation. Yeah, go hard like we're all on the ice, like it's the Mariners against the Caps, and it's Saturday night, and the fists are flying and all of that. And you have a friggin' beer afterwards, and you tell the tall tales, but you put on a good show for the audience, and maybe you made a few bucks for the arena and the like. But that's what we miss today is, I think, along with a lot more authenticity, the performative stuff that with a purpose isn't there to the same degree.
Speaking of John, who was one of everybody's favorites, and I was in his company a number of times and just the best. But one of those anecdotes is when he's in the debate with Trudeau, and Trudeau is giving him the Latin, and he only remembers 2 or 3 lines of Latin. And I think they might have been from his first year law course, and he throws them out. And just reading that, it's like, Jesus, like how often do you see stuff like that anymore? Little res ipsa locator getting tossed across the floor, right? I mean, it's an era gone by, but it's I'd like to see it make a return.
I would just share one very quick one. When things were very tense in the late or early 90s, when between Mulroney and Wells, Meech Lake falls apart, and all of that happens, and John is pissed at Clyde. And of course, their relationship, as you guys know, dates back to when Clyde was John's campaign manager for the leadership of the Liberal Party, and they both had left Joey. And as a young staffer, oh Jesus, did we ever hate going to the meetings between John and Clyde, because John had to lather himself up. So in anger. And you knew that if you had to go with him that day, all you were going to get was just abuse from one end from your toe to the tip of your nose. He's like, you got that note right. I got to sit down with fucking Clyde. And Jesus, he's going to come at me on that. I'm like, okay, it's another Clyde meeting today. Is it, John? Should I put some whiskey in the bag here? You have a couple of shots? Oh my. It was entertaining.
Oh man.
Love to talk about the rowdy days and rowdy times in politics. I think we all like what's interesting. Andrew, you talked about how it can be more sanitized today. Tim, you mentioned the rising professionalism.
Yep.
Does that take a lot of the fun out of it?
I think it does. Like, I remember this would never happen again. Like Bill Romke, another wonderful human being, now gone, like John, like some of these other characters, was the Labrador MP, and John was fisheries ministers or whatever. And I don't know. And those, John let me go do some event with Bill in remote Labrador, and that built a friendship. And because of the way we were taught it here, at least in Ottawa, is between 9 and 5, you do your job. you're a conservative government staff or they're liberals and you go at it. But after 5 o'clock, you're humans. And you know what? I'm sure Andrew's experienced this too. You learn so much more, right? When you have more in common with other people because you're in this game of politics. You're in it for a reason. It isn't just a cut and thrust. You're wanting to do something. But today, I can tell you, most certainly, young staffers and are not encouraged to do that. New politicians probably takes them a long time to figure out that actually the guy wearing the red jersey across the way knows me better than my staff do because he or she has all the same challenges that I do. But there's a real no, no, no. This is battle. This is combat, as opposed to, yeah, we can be critics of each other, but we're all trying to do the same thing. And I think it's a real disservice because you're never going to get agreement or understand other people or solve problems if you're constantly viewing your relationship as one of pure antagonism.
I tend to agree. I mean, I used to always joke to people because they only see the TV
Yeah.
version, and I'd say, look, it's like the old cartoon, morning Ralph, morning Sam. You clock
Hmm.
in, you beat the hell out of each other, and you clock out, and all right, see you tomorrow, bud. And it was very much like that. It has changed. If anything, now the thing that struck me the last number of years, there's a willingness to weaponize
Yeah.
things inside and outside the legislature that could often be career ending.
Yep.
And not because they were deservedly so. Obviously, sometimes it was. In some cases, it's just we're going to put the screws to this person. This is what we're going to do. I mean, I had it done to me,
Hmm.
and that in turn breeds fear, paranoia, suspicion, and maybe a little less willingness to find the common touch with someone on the other side, which then in turn is probably going to help you both and help your
Yeah.
constituents.
And
So
probably keep people from running in the first place.
Oh, most certainly it does, Alex. Like it- and again, I don't want to sound like I've been around for 1,000 years, though I feel like it today. But it seems that younger political staff and younger politicians don't necessarily have mentors in there anymore saying, you know what, yeah, it's okay to go hard on this person on that. It's okay to go hard on their expenses and how they voted, but leave it, right? You're not looking to dig up dirt and ruin people personally. I mean, we've incorporated, thankfully we're not as bad as the US or the UK, but we don't think as much as we once did about the human wearing the jersey. Think of them as just almost again back to the AI. Oh, that's just a chatbot from the other side or an anonymous troll. Let's just blow them up. But we don't think they have a heart and blood, and we don't also recognize that life is long. I mean, that's the thing I think you learn from Newfoundland and Labrador politics, that eventually, yeah, the liberals might rule for 15 years and the conservatives might rule for 15 years, but you're not always going to be on the government side. You're not always going to be in charge. Like people, you can earn respect by how well you do your job and how tough you go at it, but you got to show civility and decency in other places and make choices sometimes that aren't about brutalizing somebody else, but brutalize south of the border. What's rewarded? Brutalization. I mean, you go back to the recent death of Rob Reiner. Okay. And yep, Rob Reiner, most certainly a Democratic advocate, most certainly no fan of Donald Trump. But here, the man is murdered by his parent. Well, we do know he was murdered by his son. We'll see if there's a conviction or not. But his son, long history of mental illness, addictions, who knows what actually happened. And you have the president of the United States who's supposed to demonstrate judiciousness in every moment, just almost, saying Rob Reiner deserved it. That's the kind of fucking world we're living in. And young people see this, young political actors see this. And unless they're corrected and said, hey, no, man, this is not cool. This is not right. This shit is going to keep going.
absolutely. Um, I think AB. I don't know about you, but like number one. I mean, I can already tell Tim's going to have to be one of those. There's a reason he keeps coming back to open line and power and politics, is because just there's so much to uncover here. I want to go with a little, Tim, maybe a little quick rapid fire as we're
Sure.
getting ready to close out here.
Well, shut my mouth and be faster. I got it. That's what I tell the guests. All right, hurry the fuck up, will you? I got to get the commercial.
All right. So tell me now, best political communicator you've ever worked with.
I've had, all right, I've got to be quick on this. Directly worked with Crosby, been associated with Chrétien because of the authenticity, and they spoke in their own voices.
Perfect. AB, you want to throw one in?
No, I didn't have any. I'm just grateful you guys keep talking about how much younger I am than both of you, and I'm only 6
Well,
years
look
younger
at
than
you. I
Andrew.
mean,
So,
Jesus, you look you look like a young runway model there. All Newfoundland and Labrador now could run off its own Vanity Fair version, GQ, Alex. But by the way, how's the book going? Because it was wonderful what you did about your relationship and story with your dad.
book sales are going well. For the audience that doesn't know, I wrote a book about my father, who was a Vietnam War draft dodger who came to Canada, settled in Newfoundland when very few did, and got into lots of hijinks and trouble along the way. I won't go any further than that because it's supposed to be about Tim. I guess rapid fire. I was thinking about a sports one because you're a sports guy, and so is Andrew.
Yeah.
So I guess you're going to have to give me a professional athlete who compares to Andrew, and you can go any direction with that.
Oh, Jesus. Well, he likes goalies. He likes goalies. You know, actually, who he reminds me of? Because he has this he can perform and be tough and dirty when he needs to be. I think he'll like this. I'll give him Patrick Waugh. I could see him, winning the Stanley Cup and being behind the bench, tearing the hide out of some young player, and the next time giving him a hug and going that way. Patrick Waugh.
Could
That
be
was
very
a,
grateful you picked a Canadian and not Ron Hextall, or I thought that was going.
Well, I give you a all right. I know you want to clue up, but I'll give you a quick.
No, I gotta hear this, man, because I gotta tell you, I love Wow, he's my favorite, but I love Hexy. Love watching that guy.
So when I was chair of Rugby Canada, on our board was Brian Burke. Brian Burke, who Andrew would know, and I'm sure Alex, you know who Brian was. Used to run the Leafs. Used to run the Calgary Flames. Worked with Hextall at the Pittsburgh Penguins, but Brian Burke. Everything you see on TV, the collar or the tie never done up, the rough first. He's your classic charming Irishman. And I just remember this one time, Andrew, you will love this. We had a meeting in Toronto and we finished early. And Burke says, and this is all a group of athletes, former athletes, like, boys, you want to come over to the house for a beer? And it didn't take more than a tenth of a second for all the guys to say, sure, Brian, we'll come to the house. So we have this big old Jesus kitchen party at Brian Burke's in downtown Toronto. And Andrew, it was classic. Somewhere, it wasn't meant to be out there, but his Stanley Cup ring from when he won with Anaheim is there. And the boys were all shooting beers in Brian's house in his kitchen watching hockey, and his Stanley Cup ring is being passed around. And Brian's giving us the skinny on every player out there. And he told us the story because he, of course, drafted the Sedin twins, of how all that went down. Oh my God, it was a wonderful, wonderful gentleman. The best part, and he won't mind me saying this, it was not long after Dr. Pat Parfrey, who you both know, passed away. His lovely wife, Ben Vaughn, who made such a huge difference in Newfoundland and Labrador pediatric care. Brian didn't really know Pat that well at the time, but he started giving Pat dating advice that Pat did not want at his kitchen table. I think that is a moment I will cherish forever. So Dr. Parfrey, who of course runs the health services, is sitting there as Brian is telling him what it's like to date in your 60s. So the Stanley Cup rings going around. Yep, hockey, sport, politics, and personalities all in one place.
Well, now we have to get Pat Parfrey on to ask him about this.
Pat mightn't even have remembered because we're trying to bridge out of it because we knew Ben Vaughn hadn't passed away and maybe Pat hadn't come to terms with it all. But oh my goodness, was it ever funny? The kindest guy you met. I remember when Johnny Gaudreau died, and Brian was very close with Johnny because he had him in Calgary. And Brian had always shown me some human kindness, so I tried to show him some, and I sent him a message when I heard, and got the most lovely reply, because of course Brian Burke also lost a son in a car
Yes.
accident, and had gone through tragedy. And I tell you, many people I've met in life who you would describe as well known in celebrities, one of the most decent, kind, fundamentally wonderful human beings. So look, there you go. We tied sports into this, got some hockey in there, called Andrew Patrick Waugh, talked about your book. Let's sell some of your books too, Alex. Come on.
All right,
No, I
last
should have got one
question.
here.
Last question now, and we'll end it off on the sports angle. And given the fact that we were just at a hockey game,
Yep.
seeing each other, who is taking the cup this year? Tim Power's pick for Stanley Cup.
Well, not those shit-eating Toronto Maple Leafs. Your Montreal Canadiens are not far off, but I don't think they're going to do it this year. You know what? I think they got one more in them, and that's the Panthers. Like, they're dirty, they're tough, they're hard to chuck. Matthew is coming back. If he can get through the Olympics and still get on the ice, they're not going to have Barkov. They still got Bob in net. They got enough guys who want to win. I think they got one more in them, and they look dirty and mean enough to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tim, thank you so much for being here, both for the political contests and sports contests and everything in between. It's been really fantastic, and we're just so grateful that you made the time, man.
And listen, what you guys are doing, it's awesome for the province. It's great to have the kind of conversation, me apart, the conversation you're having, and giving people a different side of what you both cover and what you've both lived. So well done on getting it going.
Tim, thank you so much, brother. Hopefully, we will get around to with you. You've got, I think we're just scratching the surface of what you have to offer. We haven't even gotten into the rugby and everything else. But listen, thank you. You're a busy man. You got a million things going on. You're coaching, parenting, work, you name it, and you took some time for us. So thank you, sir.
You are very welcome. And look, I want a guy like you who's just starting up a new job, not to go on EI and have that Newfoundland right. So there you go. Just teasing.
All right,
gents.
cheers. AB. So again, another great conversation. I mean, I've had the pleasure of talking to Tim online, whether it's open line or here and there. But man, he never disappoints. He's been around, seen so much. Proud to be from home. Doesn't mind giving you the gears. Just a great guy to have here today.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, he's got this wealth of experience and he's really good at sharing it. But for all the comments he made about how old he is, in terms of politics and career, he's got a lot left in him. And I'd be curious to see if he ever gets back in behind the scenes. I don't think he wants to be a candidate, but if he brings that experience to a campaign again sometime in the future.
Well, I got to tell you, obviously comes from these conservative conservative background, obviously with John and Chess and everybody else. But man, that's the guy I'd want on my team. He knows what he's doing. He can relate to people. His politics don't define him, which more and more seems to be the case. It's you're labeled as something. I just like the guy, and again, so if he chooses to go down that route, whoever has him will be lucky. And I got a feeling though we will have him on again at some point because he's got a lot to share and a lot of great points.
Yeah, before that day comes, it sounds like he may have to be a returning guest.
Absolutely. So I guess it's time for me and you to clue up, brother. Another great show. I want to thank everybody out there that is choosing to tune in, whether it's here on YouTube, if it's on Spotify, Apple, wherever you're getting your podcasts. Throw us a like, throw us a subscribe, throw us a comment. We got the Gmail listed there. Tell us what you like or don't like. I don't know, Alex, you have anything to add to that? Telling people what they want to do or not do?
Tell your friends.
And look, again, we're new to this. We're trying to get better. Alex said it right on the first one. We're trying to get better, but we're enjoying it. And hopefully you're enjoying it as well. Thank God we've been so lucky to have these really great guests with amazing insights, telling some really good stories. So again, looking forward to the next one.
See you then. Peace.